It's a new season of Zenless Zone Zero's Deadly Assault, and we're here to find out if this season can be beaten with level 50 agents. Normally, agents can reach level 60, making rewards feel almost too easy to unlock. So instead, we're upping up the ante with this modified rule set. I'll only use agents capped at level 50, which includes their W engines and the team's Bamboo. That means their core skills are limited to rank D, and their active skills are stuck at a base level of 9. To keep things fair and accessible for everyone watching, I'll use no more than one limited W engine per team. Not only that, but I'll also restrict my limited agents Mindscape Cinema to 0.
You're broke!
I'll be going over my roster so I can show you how I build my teams as the fights progress, since agent allocation is an integral part of Deadly Assault.
Billy, go grease your gears.
The core mechanic here revolves around destroying her clones. This not only earns you performance points, but also applies a stacking debuff that reduces the Marionette's ice and electric resistance up to a maximum of 5 stacks. That, alongside the Marionette's stun multiplier, which is higher than normal, makes it the primary goal before the boss gets stunned. That said, treat this bit of information as an afterthought, because by just focusing on destroying the clones, the debuff will stack naturally in time for the stun window. On that note, I decided to do away with the elemental advantage and ended up running Billy as my main DPS even though he's neutral to the Marionette's affinities, as well as the stacking debuff. Instead, I leaned into the Raging Storm buff, which lowers the enemy's defense. I paired that with Trigger's W engine and Nicole's core ability, both of which also reduces the Marionette's defense. I'm not quite sure how these debuffs stack. Honestly, I just assumed they'd all help make her easier to take down. During the stun phase, I focused on maximizing Billy's damage, specifically his additional ability that boosts his ultimate damage each time he uses a chain attack, up to 2 stacks. By feeding both chain attacks to Billy, I made sure his ultimate was ready every time the Marionette got stunned. You might have noticed I also popped Trigger's ultimate during the stun window. Since Trigger's built as a damage dealer, I wanted to capitalize on the stacking elemental debuff. Not only that, but using her stun outside the stun window risks stunning the boss too early, leaving Billy short on decibels when I need him the most. With the restrictions I've set in place for this run, one problem I had was having enough damage to kill a clone. So I had to rely on Billy landing a critical hit to have just enough damage to kill a clone. Another problem I had was I sometimes lured the boss away from the arena's center, which made it tough to keep up when she unleashed her clone barrage. She usually does this near the end of each minute, approximately around the 20-second mark, but if you stun her beforehand, she'll often save it for right after she recovers. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who shared their thoughts and advice on the last video I made where I used Billy. And if you're interested in improving how you play Billy, I suggest taking a look at Yojimbo Blade's Ultimate Billy Guide video, since it really helped me a lot to get a handle on Billy's kit, even if I occasionally forget the finer points. I'll let the rest of the encounter unfold so you can observe the details I might have missed. Feel free to point out my errors in the comments. I'm not the most skilled player out there, so I appreciate it when you call out my mistakes to help me improve for my future runs.
Don't worry, everyone will get their share!
This one will reach its mark.
Feel the power of sunlight! It's my turn!
Got you covered.
Easy target! Feel the power of sunlight! I've got plenty of bullets!
You asked for it. Sustaining fire.
Doorway, run!
Remember to smile.
Easy target! Perfect! It's showtime!
Time to focus boss mode is clean. One shot, one kill.
Feel the power of sunlight!
Before we get into the loadout section, I thought it'd be cool to share the team compositions my colleagues ran. Hopefully these will spark some ideas for your own runs. Billy's disc drive set is a combination of the woodpecker set and the branch and blade, stacking up as much critical rate and critical damage as I can. Trigger is running a set that focuses on dealing damage more than accumulating days, since I observed that regardless of what set she uses, it won't grant me an additional slot for this encounter, so it was pointless to do so. I used an energy regen for Nicole's 6th slot because I wanted to have her defense shredding globe up as much as possible. Before diving into the next encounter, let's check out the remaining agents I'll be working with. One boss down, 2 to go, but the season's far from over. Let's shift gears and dive into the next encounter. The notorious Dead End Butcher is one of the tougher bosses you'll face in Zenless Zone Zero's Deadly Assault. This fight challenges your ability to read its telegraphed attacks and execute precise dodges while looking for windows wherein you can confess your feelings to the boss. This encounter has a few distinct aspects that define the fight. In its ether enhanced state, the boss becomes more resilient, taking less damage and reducing days buildup. Thankfully, you can knock it out of this state by triggering disorders and inflicting attribute anomalies, which has an increased effectiveness against this boss. Successfully landing a perfect dodge grants you performance points, which makes figuring out when to dodge and dealing damage an intricate balance with the restrictions I've set in place. Aside from its telegraphed attacks, the boss has a couple of important ones that you need to watch out for. These include a vanishing attack, which has 2 variations, one that has a visual cue and another that doesn't. It also has ether missiles that slowly chase you down and deal damage on contact, a spin to win move, and that visual vomit move where it launches beams while it jumps around the field flailing at you with its weapon. My squad consists of Rina as a support, Yanagi as our on-field DPS, and Vivian as our off-field DPS. This team is all about disorder damage. However, even though the boss is weak to only ether, I decided not to hyperfixate on prioritizing corruption disorder, since there are too many things already to worry about with the notorious Dead End Butcher, and overcomplicating it further will just end up burning me out. With the Graceful Mastery buff, I have more freedom to cast my agent's ultimates. I just had to make sure that I don't have my ultimate up whenever the decibel gain from the buff gets activated as to not waste decibels gained. Here's a neat trick I might have mentioned in the past with Rina. Her core skill can be activated really easily in any fight. If you find Rina without energy, all you need to do is to quickly let her use her basic attack and then switch out, since Dracilla and Anastella stay on the field after her basic attack. Ergo, her core skill passive gets triggered without having to use her EX skill, ultimate, chain attack, or even evasive assists. This saves a lot of time and energy, letting me focus on dealing damage. The main problem I had with this encounter was balancing out when to dodge and when to deal damage. But to simplify things, I just had to make sure my agent's energy doesn't max out as to not waste any potential energy gain, which leads to my next conundrum, wherein I had to contend with balancing when to dodge and when to use defensive assists. While it's true that using defensive assists allow Vivian to generate feathers without expending energy, this also wastes an incredible amount of time, as well as it being a lost opportunity to gain performance points. But if you dodge too much, you might end up stunning the boss only once throughout the encounter, which is a huge window you would miss for maximizing damage. That said, Jane Doe would be a perfect match for this encounter, since she benefits a lot from dodging. But honestly, just run Miyabi and get the polychromes for this season if you have her. However, I'd like to hear your experience of how you dealt with this boss on team compositions that doesn't involve Miyabi. I'm going to let the rest of this boss encounter play out, and I'd encourage you to point out any details I missed. Feel free to call out my errors in the comments, since I'm just your casual proxy, and your insights will help me improve for my future runs. Before we jump into the agent loadout details, I'm excited to share the team compositions my colleagues put together for their runs. I think you'll find some great inspiration for your own strategies. Overall, the team loadout is pretty standard, with the noteworthy aspects being I ran a 5th slot penetration ratio on both Vivian and Yanagi since Rina is on the team. This is because I wanted to take advantage of Rina's ability to share a portion of her penetration ratio to her teammates. Another thing to note is that, like what I've alluded to during the showcase, Vivian is running attack percent on her 6th slot, since the boss gives you plenty of defensive assist opportunities, so I didn't need to worry about her feather generation that much. Here's a quick look at my roster to show what remaining agents I'll be working with. With 2 encounters down for the count, we move on to the finale. So the main gimmick of this encounter is that it has a 3 consecutive chain attack that you need to parry with a defensive assist, in order for the boss to receive a huge chunk of day's buildup. However, if you miss a single defensive assist, you'll end up wasting a considerable amount of time, in which case you might as well cut your losses and restart the run. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward affair. So I decided to run a neutral element setup for this encounter, but thankfully, due to how easy it is to garner performance points, it wasn't as much as a problem. A possible advantage running a neutral element against a Typhon Destroyer is that I didn't need to worry about the boss getting staggered, which commonly ends up messing with the flow of this encounter. Another reason why I ran with this setup is because I also like seeing Corin's EX skill interaction with Lucy's Cinema 6 upgrade. Seeing the multi-bore airstrike is cathartic to say the least. That said, the Typhon Destroyer's inherent resistance to fire dampens Lucy's damage contribution, making the team's overall damage output lower for this encounter. With the information available, the strategy was pretty straightforward. Stun the boss, get behind him to take advantage of the Steel Cushion W engine Corin has equipped, and deal damage. Rinse and repeat. A couple of problems I faced includes trying to get Corin to have her ultimate up for each stun window, but due to the nature of this encounter, the boss gets stunned way too fast, even if I feed all the chain attacks and defensive assists to Corin. In which case, I decided it was best to cycle through my agent's chain attacks to lessen the stun duration, so Corin will have more opportunities to cast her ultimate ability on the Typhon Destroyer. Though probably common knowledge, a quick tech.
Such a horrible and unnecessary obfuscation to make the game more complicated than it is.
Though probably common knowledge, a quick tip regarding this encounter is to try to stagger the Typhon Destroyer after the stun window, in order to cancel its jump attack. However, it should be noted that it should be staggered once its arms turn blue, otherwise it will still go through with the jump attack if you stagger it too soon. I'll let the rest of the encounter play out so you can catch any mechanics I might have missed. Feel free to share your observations in the comments. I'm always looking for ways to improve my runs and video editing, so if you have any suggestions on these topics, please share them in the comment section below. I greatly appreciate the feedback. With another successful clear, it looks like HP inflation has not caught up to us yet, and this season can still be beaten with level 50 agents. As always, here's what my colleagues used on their level 50 runs. These examples should provide valuable insights to help you craft your own loadouts. Corin probably has the greatest change compared to my previous loadouts, since now she's running a 2-piece Puffer Electro alongside a penetration ratio on her 5th slot. For Caesar, I just went full damage on her main and substats since the Typhon Destroyer essentially stuns itself. For Lucy, I wanted to boost her boar's damage output, so I tried my best to give her a decent critical rate and critical damage, while also getting as close as I can to the attack threshold to maximize her Chiron buff. While these runs aren't formal guides, they can help you refine your gameplay or spark inspiration for your own approach to Zenless Zone Zero's endgame content. I encourage you to check out my previous runs for ideas and strategies. Until then, I'll see you on the next excursion.